And so it was a great experience. But the best was being home.
Right.
Yep, there we go.
It's been a tough year being coach. You had to deal with COVID, then you had to deal with transport early and all that.
Sure.
Now you've got the deal with the imagery and stuff like that. How do you keep your locker room from being split with the guys that may be getting endorsements and the other
Sure.
guys working just as hard that aren't getting anything?
Yeah, I think the big thing is with all of the things that are new to college football is, we've got a young, energetic staff that always looks for advantages instead of looking at it through a paradigm of something negative. So how can we capitalize on everything that's going on in college football and maximize and help our student athletes to attract more talent to our program, retain great players as a part of our program. And I just think the culture that we've been able to build positions us really, really well in this space. And then with the NIL piece, we're one of the top academic schools in the country, right in the heart of Atlanta. There's 30 Fortune 500 companies within a mile of our campus. So that positions us very well. Also that we embrace the branding, the marketing, the elevating of our guys' images. That's just part of our DNA. So we see all of those things as advantages for us. Atlanta, Georgia Tech is a destination place for elite players, elite talent, and we're embracing it and trying to make the most of it.
In a greater sense, with your school being kind of in a city that is bigger than some of these other schools here in the ACC, how does that position a school like that, like Pittsburgh and other schools of similar size, to be a differentiator in the NIL market?
Yeah, one of the biggest things too is we want all student athletes, wherever they are, whatever school, to be able to capitalize on all of these new legislation and support them and all of those kind of things. We just think that we have something very special to market, to sell, and to position our guys in this space at a really, really high level.
Coach, we see right now, if I can use the word swag, which is super,
Talk to
really
me.
nice.
Talk to me. Hey,
And
tell my
you
wife
know-
that too.
And we know that you brought that swag to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
I just talked to the players, some of the players, and they say they love it, they have fun. Do you believe that's part of the process, not just to play on the field, but to bring that swag for them to have fun, to be able to enjoy it, and then that transcends you all up?
Well, one of the biggest pieces is it's not an act. It's not a front. It's not something that we just put on for social or put on in front of people. It's who we are. It's how we run our organization. All of those things. We have a good time. We love our guys. But we work really, really hard. Our guys push each other. Our guys compete in every single thing they do. They excel on the field. They excel in the classroom at one of the best academic schools in the country. But I think there's been a disconnect in the history of college football that working hard and having fun has to be two separate deals. I don't believe that. I work really, really hard. Our guys work really, really hard. We deserve and we've earned the right to have a little fun while we do what we do. And I think recruits come around and they see it. It's genuine, it's not fake. And if you have that, then there's a level of trust. And if you have trust, you can maximize development. So if we were to run around saying we're this, we're that, we're the other, then we get some elite players to either come out of high school or they come into our program from the portal, and it's not what they had seen on social, it is not what they had been told it was going to be, well, then there's a lack of trust. And that's what we make sure that everything that we put on social, Ian and Patrick and Alex and those guys do a tremendous job, but it is a true reflection of how we work and what we do, and that builds trust and that helps in development.
What's the biggest change in Jeff's game now that your coaching staff has had a natural off season to be able to work with him and enrich his game?
Yeah, so just coming in as a true freshman, playing the toughest position in all of sport, regardless of what sport it is, and be a true freshman doing it is not an easy task in a vacuum. Then you throw in all the other layers that came with it. I think Jeff did a tremendous job. I think everybody around college football saw the flashes of greatness, and then just what he has done, having humility, having respect, looking in the mirror. How can I get better? How can I improve my game? And really working at a tremendous level to do that. I said it in the presser. There hasn't been a day in the last 7 months that I don't walk down the hallway where the coaches' offices are, and at least 3, 4, 7, 10 times a day there's Jeff Sims in there watching tape, studying our offense, watching cut-ups from Temple, watching defenses of the teams that we're going to play so that he can be better at his game and his craft.
Coach, as far as, I know you just talked about you and Matt Rule, you guys, you're a defensive guy.
Yep.
But Georgia Tech has a really rich legacy of offense. Running backs, wide receivers, of course, we know those guys.
Yep.
Can you speak on your offense and what do you think that your offense is going to bring to not only the ACC,
Right.
but college football in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think everybody sees the talent that we have. They see the offensive line that Brent Key and us have developed over the last 2.5 years. Then the pieces that have come in through high school and then through the portal to help us take the next step, complementary. I think it's well documented how deep and talented our running back room is. And they do a tremendous job playing together, contributing on special teams, and then running the ball and catching out of the backfield at a high level. So I just think the focus, the attention to detail, limiting pre-snap penalties, limiting things that hurt us post-snap that set us behind the chains, that attention to detail is going to help us take the natural progression in our development.
And I've asked Jeff, earlier in the presser room,
Right.
About him being compared to Lamar Jackson.
Sure.
What do you have to say about that? That your quarterback, who was a true freshman last year, is getting that kind of comparison.
Yeah, I think anytime you have somebody as talented as Lamar, as talented as anybody that's in the league, there's only, 32 NFL quarterbacks? So if you're even in the same conversation with any of them, that's special. But I do agree with Jeff. I think his skill set is unique. I think it's special. But my favorite thing about Jeff Sims is not only he's a great player and he's a great talent and all those things, that's evident to everybody, he's even a better person. He's humble, he's respectful, he was voted a captain by his peers for the spring game, and that's uncommon. And it's not because he's out in front, look at me, it's because he's selfless, he's a great teammate, he works really, really hard. Everybody in that locker room knows how great he wants to be, and he works at it every single day, and that's uncommon and it's special.
I know you guys are about to meet about impressions about the playoff. What are your initial thoughts on potential expansion?
My initial thoughts is I want to be back in the position like it was when I was a young coach that Georgia Tech is in that conversation. Whether it be 4 teams, whether it be 12 teams, I want Georgia Tech to be positioned that we're a part of that narrative, we're a part of that conversation. That whole 4-12, there's other people that'll figure that piece out. My job every single day is to elevate this program, develop, recruit, market, promote, get our guys positioned so they can take that next step to be in those conversations. I'm excited the way they've worked, the way we've gone through the offseason, the things that we were very critical about throughout the season, the things that when we did the deep dive in late December, early January on everything that we need to improve on. Penalties, pre-snap and post-snap, turnovers, limiting them and creating them, and then finishing drives in the red zone are some of the key play pieces. The 14 new guys that we brought in January, again, based on the guys that we have returning, which is a lot, then them coming, if we can get the attention to detail piece, the focus piece, not having critical errors, especially in critical times, we got a chance to be pretty good.
Does your messaging to players change because the hope and expectation and the need to win more games is there?
So the everything, Jeff, is an incremental development, incremental progression of how we develop. First, we had to play with really high energy. We had to play with great effort, right? That was year one. That was the whole focus. The second year during a COVID year, being gritty, being tough, finding a way to fight through and handle all the adversity is being thrown around everybody in college football. But now the brand is set, the culture is set, recruiting is at a high level, it is set. Now it's time to play really good football. And all we've talked about in our whole organization since January is what's important now for us to be in a position that we can win. And that's the complete focus, the branding, the marketing, the social media, all of those mechanisms are in place and they kind of can roll, now we can focus on playing really good ball, having tremendous attention to detail, play together, be focused, and be ready to go.
In a sense, as a coach, because that need to win or hope to win is closer, you turn the screws on.
I try to be me. There's a high attention to detail. There's a high elevated, every single thing that we do in the weight room, in the meeting rooms, all of those things, those don't change, but just the shift of all the other things that we had to establish in the first 2 years, they're established. Now we can whittle it down to these are the things that truly, truly matter at this stage in our development, in our program, and it's an exciting time.
Coach, you mentioned wanting to be in the national conversation before we're the 12, if it goes to 12. What's it going to take in this conference for a team like Georgia Tech to upseat Clemson and end up in that conversation?
Yes, it's just every single day relentlessly attacking our development, focus on every single thing that we can do to win each and every week. I think Jeff said it best earlier. He and I were in a breakout room. The sole focus, one game at a time. Then get to the next week, learn from your mistakes, build on what you did really well, one game at a time. That mindset, I think we're finally in that place that as the maturity level of this team is at that, and the leadership of this team is at that place where that messaging isn't always coming from the coaches. It's coming from the guys in that locker room understanding where we are, where we've been, and how we're going to take that next step. And it's not always coming from the coaches, which is really cool.
Going through your travels, your plan, at what point did you go, it's clicked, we've passed that point, we're now over that hump and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's different parts, and I won't talk about in specifics, but there's different parts where you just look at, we are so far ahead of where we have been. And you can just look at different instances in my career where those kind of things resonate and your guys are saying it. That's one of the biggest pieces for the first 2 years. The coaches and myself, we were having to constantly drive the message. Now it's the guys in the locker room holding each other accountable, setting the standards, setting the work ethic, setting the expectations, setting the mindset in the organization after what they've learned over 2 years. That's when it becomes powerful. And I'm excited about the guys, that are here today, and then the other group of guys, we've got a bunch of them that are reinforcing the message, reinforcing the mindset. We've got a leadership retreat this weekend. I think we're taking 19 guys on it where we'll have deep conversations about identity, about how we're going to do every single thing this season and preseason to take the next step.
You mentioned you work hard and you play hard. What's the most fun you've had with the team?
There's so many.
Well, just name a couple. Come on.
Every day's a blast, man. I know that. I know Jeff Schultz hates that answer, but every day is a blast getting to coach these guys. Obviously when you win, in those moments, we had, 4 rosters against Duke and Louisville, and those were big wins for us. But just the grind and seeing the hard work pay off has been special.
Is it as simple as a difference between hoping to win and expecting to win? Are you I guess crossed over into that territory?
Understanding the things that have held us back. Pre-snap penalties, the post-snap loss of judgments, the turnovers, especially in critical situations, understanding how little things can hurt us. Sometimes players got to experience that, and we've experienced it, for it not to happen and be a commitment for it not to happen. Sometimes the greatest learning experiences are painful ones, and I think we've gone through a lot of those, and these guys are ready to not let that happen again and take the next step.
Is it harder to win at this level at a Power 5 conference than it is
that's pretty good ball, man. We were in the AAC. I think last year we were there, went 7-1 in our league. It's some pretty good football.
But if you were turning over a program where you was 4, would it take until year 3? Would you be at the same stage, or would you be 3 years?
I don't know about that. I think you have to look at the complete total, what the program was, where it needed to go, what the transition from the roster, from the schematics, from all of those things. You have to look at that entire picture, and that's been well discussed enough. I don't want to get into that anymore. I'm just focused on where we are right now. The roster, we've had one full recruiting class that's played for us. This will be our second recruiting class, full recruiting class. That'll be coming to camp in 2.5 weeks. We're just really excited to have those guys in our culture now.
Are you looking forward to smother any of those negative narratives that might be out there, whether it's all BS or whether he has to prove he can win in the ACC, whether I mean, you've heard of it.
I've not. I don't worry about them. All I worry about is I am blessed to coach this group of guys. I know exactly where we've been. I know exactly where we are. I know exactly where we're going. And every day come in with that relentless, positive mindset to get us there.
But at some point when you have evidence, it's going to be
Sure.
In terms of just the winning and losing piece of the defense, you had to start as part of one piece with the defensive line. Now you're entering year 3 or between transfers and all other pieces. It sounds like kind of where you want to be, bodies and
Sure.
development-wise.
Yep.
Does that change the tenor of the defense and what you can do?
Well, I think
How much is that limited?
and I think there's a lot of confidence, and I've spoken at length about some of the things that I thought we struggled last year. I thought we were a collection of corners and a collection of safeties, not a full, entire, cohesive secondary. I thought we were a collection of defensive ends and a collection of defensive tackles, not a full, cohesive D-line. And the front end to the back end at times didn't play to the level that I think they're about ready to play at. They've spent a lot of time together as a full secondary, spent a lot of time together as a full defensive line, and having a guy like Ace, Jaquez Jackson, Charlie Thomas, that have been through the fights and have natural charisma, natural leadership ability to tie it all together. I'm fired up.
said, and I think maybe you even said 2 weeks ago, that you guys are situated in maybe the toughest piece of real estate in the college football.
Sure.
I mean, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama,
Yep.
Tennessee, Auburn, all around. How as a coach do you sort of approach that situation?
Well, the nice thing about us is where we're positioned from the recruiting landscape, such tremendous talent, such tremendous high school coaching, and regardless of where you go in the Southeast, and we learned this during June, regardless of where you go in the Southeast, college to college, you're going through Atlanta. You're either going on 20, you're going on 75, you're going on 85, you're gonna go at some point through the heart of Atlanta, and we had a ton of visitors. They see our program, they get to know our coaches, they get to be around our players and our vibe. That's an exciting piece of real estate to be in. Then you look at all that we have to offer from an educational standpoint, from an internship standpoint, the name, image, and likeness aligning with different companies is right here in Atlanta. Nobody else has that. So we see that as an advantage, and we're embracing anything and everything that is Atlanta, and embracing being in one of, regardless of what news magazine or news report you look at, the 1, 2, or the 3 top academic schools in the country. We're embracing all of that and see those things as an advantage. And you even asked me, I didn't mean to point at you. You even asked me, and I'll never forget it, Jeff, in my introductory press conference, how do you handle the disadvantages of being such an elite academic institution? And I see it as a tremendous advantage, because everybody wants to have a great education. Everybody wants to be set up for life after football. Then you package it in a way that is real, that is setting themselves up for huge success on the field, off the field, and in this day and age that they're able to market their brand, it sets up really well for us.
Is that where your NIL like pitch to? Because you may not be able to pay what Bama can pay, but if you're projecting your long-term income or those types of
Absolutely.
things, is that how you kind of plan to go
Yep,
against that?
and we've even had meetings. So with the larger leadership group, the guys that have played a lot with us, is one of the things is a lot of those guys have real jobs at Fortune 500 companies or in commercial real estate or whatever. That's how they're spending their summer outside of working out. And they're doing really well for themselves, right? So some may choose that avenue to maximize their experience here at Georgia Tech. Others might be in a position where they can maximize it with aligning with the company or getting some kind of deal. All of those are okay. And being in a position that you can do that at our place is unlike a lot of other places in college football.
Do you see more of your student athletes channeling towards business classes in the school environment as a result of all of this?
They do. We have a breadth and depth of majors that are all over the place at our spot.
Is winning still the key to maximizing the NIL?
Absolutely.
Kind of deal? I mean,
And
it's
we-
still, the bottom line is you have to win games, right?
Playing good ball individually, winning games collectively, both of those things combined elevates and makes you more marketable. Then, if you're a good dude and you present yourself well on social or when you're in front of the media, those only enhance businesses wanting to align with you. So obviously we've had those conversations too, but the nice thing about the guys that we have in our program, they already recognize that. They already understood that those conversations were happening even before we presented those things.
You already mentioned the penalties and programs around you that we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
All have monster budgets,
Absolutely.
resources,
Yep.
whatever. That you guys don't have just because it's a different place.
Sure.
How difficult is that to deal with, and is there a sense of, I don't know if the word is unfair or just, I'm just curious how you deal with that and what people's expectations are.
Right. So the big thing too is how can I position ourselves? How can I do things to elevate us? How can I even raise more capital too for our program, for our guys? So all of those things are in play. But I don't, Jeff, you've known me now for 3 years, and those things, I don't worry about what I don't have. I worry about what we do have and how I can maximize it. And what our X factor is the vibe when they come in our locker room, the relationships that we have with our guys, the exposure that we give them that's unlike a lot of places in college football. Those things still matter. When they come around our program, they come around our guys, and they see the relationships that we have. A lot of times that's a differentiating factor.
In a 14 playoff, going into any season, how many teams, schools realistically are looking at those four spots?
I don't know an exact number, but I would imagine 12 to 14, I would think.
Okay, and in a 12-team playoff, how many teams?
I don't know that. I haven't given it that much thought, but I will think about it.
But would you be in that group? In that next group?
So we're working to put ourselves in that position, absolutely.
You mentioned cutting down on penalties and turnovers
Yep.
before. What else do you kind of point to that maybe you were encouraged by in the offseason that you think will result in more W's?
Yes, so some of those things that we just spend an inordinate amount of time addressing, and different mechanisms that we put in place to address them in real time. Ace did an impersonation of me on one of the ACC network things, and it was pretty spot on with that emphasis. But those kind of things were when the guys started saying it too. That's when I knew that we're about ready to take a really good step.